Hey everybody, this is Toby Eunice with the Gypsy Kiss. Stick with me a couple of seconds and I will introduce you to Fenn Treasure Searcher Sasha Johnston. Hey Sasha, how are you doing today?
Hi, Toby. I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thank you for asking. Are you taking time out from your busy schedule in Albuquerque real estate?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mostly got everything done today
Oh, well,
already.
good. That's good to hear. So we won't take very long. We know that you've got a busy life between work and family. So I wanted you to know that we very much appreciate you taking the time to do this interview today. So let's start with the questions that weren't on the questionnaire. And the first one, of course, is who are you? Tell us about you. Who is Sasha Johnston?
Um, I'm 37 and I live in Albuquerque and I'm a mom. I have a daughter that's a sophomore in college and a son that's about to go into kindergarten. And I sell real estate, as most people know. And I love doing that. I do have two college degrees. I have one in business and one in computers.
Oh,
So
excellent
yeah,
combination. What a great combination.
before I was in real estate, I used to work in project management. And the last job I had, I was actually the IT project manager of a medical laboratory. So I'm used to dealing with a lot of complicated things and difficult situations.
And
But I
uh,
love the adventure of all this. That's what appeals to me, especially with that structure I have in my life.
mhm. And how did you make the transition into real estate? I know it can be an iffy business, but I know people who are successful when they apply themselves to it. How did you get into it?
Um, with real estate, it was an interesting decision because it's not something I've done before, and it's certainly not in anything I would have thought of doing. But when my son was born, I knew I needed to work, but I wanted something that allowed me the flexibility to also be the kind of mom I wanted to be. So, yeah, and a lot of my coworkers give me a hard time because on my lunch breaks, sometimes you can find me posting pictures of myself at the pool at the country club with my son.
Hmm.
But a lot of traditional jobs don't give you that flexibility. And I could have gone back to doing the job that I was doing at the medical laboratory, but it was a very high demand job. And, I had to go into work early and stay late and make sure things got done. And I just wanted something that allowed me to take the time out I needed to, go on field trips with my son and make sure I'm there with my daughter when she enrolls in school. And so, and real estate does that. And the funny thing is, I actually work more in real estate than I do at my other jobs because we always work weekends. We work a ton of holidays that most people don't. And, I'll be writing contracts in the 9:30, 10 o'clock at night and negotiating deals at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Hmm.
So, but I do appreciate that time it allows me.
It is a demanding job. I know from friends who are in real estate. So I know that you are not now married, but that you've recently entered into a relationship. I'll call it romantic relationship, from what I can tell, with a another Fenn treasure hunter. If you don't mind, would you tell us a little bit about that?
Um, that is all very true. I was married. I've been divorced for over a year now, and I met Jason, but most know him as Fenn Treasure Hunter, at a searcher lunch in Santa Fe. That it was very impromptu, and I was invited to very late at night at the last minute. And I happened to have availability to go to Santa Fe that day for it. So I don't even know how to describe it, but I think we were definitely kind of connected from the moment we met. And he's a great guy. He's very smart, very nice, and it is interesting. We do have different ideas on what we think things mean, but we're both very supportive of the other one, and we make sure that we don't put each other's ideas down because neither one of us is holding a box of gold.
Right.
But at the same time, that's definitely not a large portion of our relationship. I would actually say it's extremely small. We just happen to get along and do a lot of things similarly. So, I mean, I really like him. He's a really nice guy. He sent me flowers this week from the
Well,
field.
I can tell because you sparkle when you talk about him. I'm going to share a secret with you.
Oh,
He was, as you know, he was in town a couple of weekends ago, and he and I got together for coffee at
mhm.
Flying Star. We were together for about 2 hours, and I asked him a very similar question about how the relationship was going, and the first words out of his mouth were, "It was love at first sight." So when you met him at that lunch, he was already smitten, and he does the same thing. If it's possible for a man to glow when he's talking about the woman he loves, he glows. So don't let him
Well, I would use the
don't
same
tell him I
phrase.
said that.
I would use the same phrase, but I didn't want to put him on the spot. I would absolutely say it was love at first sight,
Yeah,
and I've said that many times already.
yeah,
So.
yeah. Well, that's how he sees it. So
I know he does.
yeah.
I know.
So
He's
let's move on a little bit to this search, and I think everybody wants to know. I think almost everybody who knows you knows how you got into it, but there's going to be a lot of people that see this video that don't know the story. So tell me a little bit about how you got into the search.
and I'll tell you the same thing I've told a bunch of people, and
Yeah.
I think it's funny. Um, I first heard about the search in 2013 from the Today Show, but I was pregnant with my son, and so of course searching was not even in the realm of possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So I just put it in the back of my mind, and I forgot about it, and life went on. And the following year, I happened to come across Dale's website again, and at that time, Forrest had come out with Too Far to Walk and the map, and I saw a picture of the map. And when I did it, it reminded me of the map from Goonies. And I thought that was funny. And I pictured the kids from Goonies in the attic of the house and the ones reading the map out to the other ones. And he says, "Ye intruders beware." And that was it. That was it for me. It was, back in 2014. And I think I went on my first search in February of that year. Since then, I've accomplished over 200 searches. And so I always say I'm not an expert at anything except where the treasure is not. So
So when people ask you, Sasha, where is the treasure? What do you say to them?
somewhere in the Rocky Mountains north of Santa Fe.
That's a good answer. So I've, as you know, I've been on just I think 31 what we call recons. 200 searches sounds like a lot to most people when they hear that. Why don't you tell us a little bit because you and I both know it's not a bit as big as it
Right.
sounds. So
It's not.
explain to our audience what you mean when you say you've been on 200 searches.
So I have searched in my area on over 200 different occasions, but for me to search is actually pretty easy. All I do is drive 2 hours in each direction, and then I usually do boots on the ground for less than 2 hours. And I would say 2 hours or less. That's usually my max. And there's a lot of things or reasons why I do that. Number one, we're in the desert and it's
Mm-hmm.
hot out there, and there's sun, and I've had heat stroke. And so I never put myself in a position where that's going to be something I risk doing to myself. And then another reason is because I do have kids and a job and a schedule. So I have to make sure it's all done within a time frame where I can get away and everything's going to be okay for me not being there for 8 hours. And then it's only a half a tank of gas. And, maybe I stop at my favorite little spot for lunch, which
Mm-hmm.
is another $15. So for me, the expense is maybe $30 or $40 a trip and just, time. So for me, it's a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm able to accomplish 200 searches. And that's also over a 5 year time span. So, I mean, if you do it out like that, it's a lot less per time.
How do you feel about taking your children out with you on the search?
Um, my daughter in college could not be bothered. She's got her own life. She's
Mm-hmm.
got, other things to worry about. And my son is just still too little um, for, like, he doesn't understand about cactus yet. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he still needs a little bit more education before I take him out into a place where he's going to encounter things that he's not used to encountering, like
Right.
cactus.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So I haven't yet, but I don't go anywhere I would be afraid to take my kids, and that's another part of this. Is if Forrest really did intend for families to be a part of this, I really don't believe he would have hidden it anywhere that's difficult to get to or that is dangerous to take children to. And so that's one thing that I always keep in the back of my mind is how would I feel about bringing my kids here? And so if it's something I would be like, no, no, this isn't okay. Well, then no, you're in the wrong spot.
So you're, of course, like us, like Shelley and I, in New Mexico, and you've had a long-standing relationship with Forrest, and I would refer to it as an intimate relationship, but not romantically intimate, but you know each other. If someone were to ask you what is the most important thing to know about Forrest Fenn, what would you tell them?
Well, first I would categorize it as a friendship. I am friends with Forrest. I don't see him nearly as often as people think I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do communicate with him through email, but just like everyone else, 90% of my emails, go unanswered. And even with the even with the chase, he never responds to anything that I write having to do with the chase. So I think that's the first thing I want people to know is that Forrest would never help anyone, no matter how much he likes that person. And I think that we've had instances where that's been proven over time. And the second thing I want people to know is the reason I'm friends with Forrest has everything to do with everything not related to the treasure hunt about him. Forrest is a character. He's funny and witty, and he's got so many amazing stories because of the life that he's lived. He knows every little nook and cranny about Santa Fe, and he's got a lot of great ideas about a lot of things. And so, like for example, when I was getting into real estate, Forrest kind of explained to me how the art business worked and how people make a profit and what they do. And I thought about that as something I might get into at that time rather than real estate. So what I want everyone to know about Forrest is that there's so much to him that has nothing to do with this treasure hunt. And I actually think that this is only about 1% of Forrest. I think that there's 99% of a person that mostly gets ignored because this one thing that people focus on. And I also think that's why him and I are friends, is because we don't talk about treasure hunting.
Mm-hmm.
When I see Forrest Fenn, it's not part of the conversation. That's not something we discuss. And the reason is because I learned this about him a long time ago. When you bring up treasure hunting in his presence, he does one of two things. He makes a funny comment, that's very extremely vague in the most possible way, or he just declines to respond and has to ignore you. Well, from getting to know Forrest, I've learned that he does not enjoy ignoring people. It's rude. So if I'm going to be his friend and I actually care about my friend, then I don't bring up topics that he's uncomfortable with discussing, and that includes treasure hunting.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned a lot of amazing things about Forrest and people and stories that he's told. And, that only comes with someone who's lived as much life as Forrest has lived. And I think if people actually paid attention to those parts of him, they would find a whole world of things that they really never knew. And it's very interesting.
That point that you make about not wanting to make a person you call your friend uncomfortable. I think we've always, all of us have experienced that. And
Mm-hmm.
what you have to be is sensitive enough to know that topic of conversation makes them uncomfortable and they have to ignore you. There's a very interesting dynamic that goes on as a result of that. I like that you brought that up. So,
Yeah, I agree. He's
go ahead.
he's a whole other person outside of this treasure hunt, and I think people should pay attention to that more.
Yeah. So, you're in New Mexico. You live in New Mexico. Your search area is in New Mexico. If I recall correctly, you haven't been to other states, right?
Well, I've been, but not for searching.
Right.
No,
You haven't searched in Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana. So
no.
we all saw this video that came out this week that we hadn't seen before, in which he says things like, "My heart is still in Yellowstone." Very dramatic comments relating to his relationship with that area. So first of all, when you heard it, what did you think? And secondly, how has it impacted your thinking about the search?
To be honest, the video had absolutely no impact on my feelings about the search or where I search, because I don't derive anything that I use in the search from outside of the poem. I may have to research information to see if I have a correct assumption, but if it doesn't come from the poem, I don't put much stock in it, even though this is a video and I like the video. I did find some interesting things in the video. Yes, the lumberjack part of it where that was left out, and the last image and the thrill of the chase. I mean, that's kind of interesting connection there. So, but it doesn't make me think it's in one geographic place or another. Again, this is one of those things where what I derived from the video is that Forrest actually feels a lot guiltier than I think we realize about his participation in Vietnam. And I do feel that he is genuinely a good person. And I think that I actually was empathetic to that because of that video. So if anything, I think I learned more about Forrest as a human from watching that video. I didn't learn anything about treasure hunting. So
that's a good place to be. I'm gonna do a little bit of self-promotion here for those of you who watch our Thrill of the Chase book club today. By the time you see this video, it will have been yesterday. We covered the last part, the epilogue, in My War for Me, and we came to a lot of the same conclusions that Sasha has already and explained here. I strongly recommend you take a look at that video. So, when do you believe Fenn's treasure will be found?
I'm not going to say when, but I will say this. At no point in the chase has Forrest implied that anyone was close until this year. And I only think he would do that in order to soften the blow. And if I've learned anything about Forrest, it's that he doesn't say anything unless he can back that up. So if he has a reason to believe that, then I think that, maybe that's true. Maybe somebody is close. But that's not going to deter me from continuing to search because, I know that I'm working hard and I know that I'm putting in a good effort. And who's to say that I'm not going to surpass that person and figure it out before they do? So until it's found, I'm going to keep looking. And if anything, I think I have seen some other searchers feel that it's ramped up their efforts to try and search because they feel like, well, if I was ever going to get out there and do it, now's the chance. But I also feel like Forrest was almost trying to prevent people from, planning entire family vacations to Yellowstone and spending $5,000 on looking for treasure this summer that might not be there for them. So again, this goes back to him as a person. I think he actually cares. And I think he is softening the blow for the rest of us, especially those of us who have been in it for so long. Some of us have our YouTube shows around it. So I think that maybe that's him giving us a little bit of a heads up, trying to be nice. I don't think he'd say that for no reason. I think we've learned Forrest doesn't say things for no reason.
So let's expand about on that just a little bit. Let's do it in terms of a hypothetical. Let's hypothesize that the treasure is not found this season. That we go into October, let's say at the very latest, we realize that the treasure has not been found. What are you going to spend your winter doing if the treasure is not found by the time winter arrives?
Well, I will be spending it the same way I'd spend it every winter. I would snowboard and I would visit my boyfriend at his new duty station in Kansas.
That's right.
And bake for my family because in the wintertime you can't go outside, you got to stay in. So I cook. And I always, I try to say this in every interview that I've done, and I don't think it almost ever makes it out into the actual publication of what it is. But the biggest rule I've always followed during this treasure hunt is that it does not interfere with regular life. That I only do it when I am available and I have time, and that my responsibilities are taken care of first, and that means my job and my kids. So, I always live my life first, and then I treasure hunt. But I mean, I want to learn how to speak Spanish because I do live in New Mexico. That'd be a great hobby to take up. So I could fill the time. I'm not worried about it. I am a little worried more, actually, I would say, about losing the connections with the people because we have created a little community and I've made a lot of very dear friends. And I'm afraid that without this commonality between us, we might lose those connections. That I am afraid of. That's the only thing that would make me really sad about this is just to not get to interact with all these people anymore.
So recommendation: try Babel, flat fee for all the languages you can learn.
Really, I've heard about this. I
Yeah,
kind of want to try it because
yeah.
there's a couple I want to learn.
It's a
I
very
don't know
good
if you
model.
noticed. Did Jason tell you that he's fluent in Korean?
Oh no, he didn't, but that doesn't surprise me because he spent a number of years there, and in the field, in the support field, he's got to interact with the Korean military, so that doesn't surprise me. So,
He's also fluent in French. The
oh,
guy speaks three languages.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had a good time at well, like I said, we met for coffee for almost 2 hours, and we both had other things that we had. He had to get back to your place, as a matter of fact, for some reason or the other. When he said that you lived near the golf course, I thought it was the golf course up on the north part of Paseo, so that's why I suggested the Flying Star. So, okay, so one of the questions I ask is, which of the Fenn memoirs do you own? And you checked none. What's up with that?
True story. So here's what's up with that. And this is even worse than actually having to check the nun box. I have owned no less than four copies of The Thrill of the Chase, two copies of Too Far to Walk, and a copy of Once Upon a While. So I had given away the first three copies of The Thrill of the Chase and both copies of Once Upon a While, or not Once Upon a While, excuse me, Too Far to Walk, because I would come across people who heard about the chase, but like here, a good example was the landscapers at my ex-husband's house. They're brothers, and they knew that I searched for this treasure, and they were always so interested in it. The two guys between them couldn't come up with $45 to buy a book, and I knew that. And so one day they're there working, digging up tree stumps, and they're just sweating all day. So I actually gave them the books because they would have never had the opportunity to buy them. And I didn't feel like that was fair. I felt like if somebody wants to look for the treasure, the cost of the book should not be a barrier. And these aren't the kind of people who have computers in their houses or
Right.
internet at home either. So, I mean, it was a real barrier. So I gave them my copies. My most recent copies, I have currently, I own The Thrill of the Chase and Once Upon a While. And a fellow realtor and his dad, who liked to go jeeping, had heard about this. And the guy who owns the Coldwell Banker offices in New
Mm-hmm.
Mexico knows about my treasure hunting exploits. And he was having lunch with one of them one day. And they start telling him they're going to start looking for this treasure. And he says, "Don't do anything until you talk to Sasha." He's like, "You have to talk to Sasha about this. This is her bag."
Saves you time, money, and effort to have that conversation.
Right. So they did. And I lent them my books. And that was about 3 or 4 months
And
ago.
haven't
And
gotten them.
I've been emailing, asking for them back, and I'm hearing nothing
Yeah.
but cricket. So I think those are gone. Even though every copy I've given away is inscribed to me, Forrest has signed every copy,
Mm-hmm. It's
but I own none.
we I loaned one to one of my copies to my son, and gave him a like 90. You've got it for 90 days, and then I am coming to your house to pick it back up. So, how
I
much?
do own.
Go ahead.
I do own a copy of $17 a square inch
Mm-hmm.
and The Secrets of San Lazaro Pueblo. So I mean, but I own no books right now.
I've spent more time with The Secret of San Lazaro Pueblo than I have with Too Far to Walk. I find it a much more interesting book in a sense that it's made for an amateur archaeologist or amateur anybody.
I read through that book in 3 days.
Yeah,
I was completely hooked.
yeah.
I mean, the whole, and it's not a skinny
It's
book.
no, it's as thick, if not thicker, than Too Far to Walk.
Way thicker because the pages are bigger too.
Right.
I mean, it's a bigger book,
And
but
it's
I was
denser. There's a lot more copy in it.
I was emotionally invested with San Lazaro.
Yeah.
I really was. I mean, and he brings you in. It was a great read.
So uh, we know who Sasha Johnston is. It sounds like Sacha Johnston knows who Sasha Johnston is. As a result of the search, what element or what is it about the search that has taught you something new about yourself?
Boy, I've learned I'm more patient than I ever gave myself credit for. If I can keep this up for 5 years and still keep going, I mean, that shows patience. But um, I learned a lot about myself when Randy went missing, because I stepped outside my comfort zone and I did things I'd never done before, and I was invested in that scenario. Um, I've learned so much about real things that we don't learn anymore, that our grandparents probably knew, but that we
Mm-hmm.
don't. And it's easy things like look at the sun and figure out where you are and what time of day it is,
Uh-huh.
and following animal tracks and oh, I can't even imagine all the things. And I have a funny story because early on in the chase, I was looking into land surveying to do some research for the chase. And I was looking into the maps and the National Survey System and all that stuff. And then just a few months later, I ended up having to get my real estate license. And we're required to learn the same sort of things for that. And I laughed because I already knew this part. And this is actually the part that most people fail on the real estate test. But I had to learn it for the chase, so I aced it. So I
Uh-huh.
thought that was, pretty funny, and that applied in real life.
That's that probably the fact that you had something spiritual happen and then something, uh, 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 a learning thing happen. That's really good. So, last question. You've been at this for what, 5 years now?
Yes, sir.
You've done a lot. You've researched a lot. What eventually there's going to be new searchers. Oh, and by the way, none of this will end up on the cutting room floor, right? So,
Okay.
what advice would you give to searchers now coming into the chase, people that haven't been in it for 5 years?
Well, number one, slow down because you might have figured out one thing in the poem, but that doesn't mean you know where it's hidden. We've all had that moment, that first moment, the aha moment where we think we figured it out and we run out and we do a search and we're wrong and we got to come home and eat crow. And it's okay. Get used to that feeling because that's what happens every time until the time it
Until
doesn't.
you find the
So
treasure. That's right.
that's right. So number one, just get used to that feeling. And number two, don't be boastful because that doesn't make friends. And you'll find that if you are friendly and sharing, you'll find a lot of people who are the same mindset in this chase community. And then I think the most important thing that I can say is that statistically, you will not find a box of gold. Neither will I, for that matter. But I don't think that's what you should be focusing on. You should be focusing on the adventure and making sure that the adventure is fun. Because at the end of the day, when you don't come home with your box of gold, you will still have had the adventure, and that you can keep forever. No one can take it from you, and it can't be sold. So remember that part and just make sure whatever you do, you stay safe and you have fun.
That is amazingly good advice. So, before we sign off here, is there any last thing you want to say to your beau who will eventually watch this, I'm sure?
I only want to say that I miss him very much.
In Blistonia, was it? Bliss, I think he's at. So, he's so funny with his emails.
Oh, it's even worse in real life, I
Yeah,
promise
I'll
you.
bet. All right, Sasha, thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview. It was great. I promise you, none of it will end up on the cutting room floor. So everybody's going to hear all those stories that you wanted to tell and didn't get quite out in the media before. But you've been very gracious, and we really appreciate you sharing the time with us.
Thank you for having me, Toby. I've really enjoyed it.
And of course, good luck in your search and good luck in building the Fenn Treasure Hunter channel with Jason.
Thank you, and good luck in your search as well.
Thank you.